Oha. Hamitaki api. Petu ashte. Ake Elijah Hopkins de miedo. Welcome everybody to our guest speaker series. I have invited back actually Jim Red Eagle to come share with us, and he's been very gracious with his time. And so we want to thank him and welcome for joining us here at Fort Pitt Community College. Programming here that we try to do online and reach our greater Buffalo Chaser community wherever they are. And so again, actually, Jim, I thank you for joining us today. And so I believe we discussed talking a little bit about the Black Hills for your presentation today. So I'll turn the floor over to you.
Medaki api. Jim Red Eagle. Today I'm going to share about the Black Hills and why it's sacred to us as Nakota, Dakota, and Lakota, the Oceti, Shagawi, Oyate. I also talk about the 7 altars, the 7 sacred mountains in the Black Hills. But first, I'm gonna sing a song. And I'd like to start out with a song. And this is a song made by my uncle, John Arundham Sr., the late John Arundham Sr. You may have heard it somewhere, but that's the origin of this song, if you hear it. It's an honor song, Ichiro, honor song to honor our grandfathers and our grandmothers, those that held on to our stories, those that held on to our ceremonies, those that held on to our ways of life, because there was a time when it was underground and our ways were forbidden. So they went underground with them, and they took care of them. And today we can do them. We can practice our ceremonies publicly, openly. So this is a song he made to honor those knowledge keepers. Ojanata gashela, which a wixu ye, hey na wixu ye lo hey. Ojanata gashela, which a wixu ye, hey na wixu ye lo hey. Ojanata gashela, which a wixu ye, hey na daku wa kawa unspe makia yellow hey hey ya o janata gashela, which a wixu yellow hey. Wow. So if you ever heard that song, again, that was made by my late uncle, John Arundham Sr., to honor those grandpas and those grandmas who held on to our ceremonies and traditions. And I'm going to go back a little bit from last session. I was talking about the Oceti Shagawi. And often we don't think of how we live and how a lot of times we just think about our home where we live. There's 7 levels we live at as a people, as a Oyate. We say Tioganaka. Tioganaka is a household. And traditionally, we lived in a lodge, and there was other family members with us as well. You know, we never had orphans. Orphans, we took them in. We We helped them out. So we never had orphans. We never had poor people long ago. Those widows, we took care of our relatives. So when we say Tioganaka, that household, even today, comprises several families. Tiwahe is a single family. You and your spouse, your mate, and your children. That's a tiwahe. Uchoti is a camp circle. As you all camp together. Tioshpaye is a band. You look at like Fort Peck is a Tioshpaye in a way. And then in that is little Huichote is all over. Fort Kip, Oswego. We're all related in a way. Oyate is a beyond that, a people, a tribe. Tawan is a nation. Then Ocheti is kind of like the United Nations. So when I say Ocheti, Shakawi, Oyate, it's like the United Nations of the Nakota, the Dakota, and the Lakota. In English, the white man, they call us the Great Sioux Nation. And because of that, the Black Hills, when we signed treaties in Fort Laramie and other places, it included the Black Hills. We never sold our Black Hills. They're still waiting. There's still an amount of money that was set aside in 1980 when we won our fight against the government for the Black Hills. And we refused the money because the Black Hills is sacred to the Nakota, the Dakota, and the Lakota. And so I'm gonna tell a story of why and these sacred places in the Black Hills. You may have heard about some of them, but you haven't heard about all of them. And I share about walking the Red Road, what that originally meant. But nowadays we look at it as I'm living a clean, sober life. But the original intent of the Red Road was to going to the 7 altars in the Black Hills, starting in springtime. We go to those 7 altars. The last one is what we call Devil's Tower or Matrotipila, the Bear's Lodge. And there was a reason for everything and why they did that. So the creation of the Black Hills, they say, happened with the Great Race around the Black Hills. A lot of times we hear stories about the Black Hills and the Great Race. Wamaka ki Ochanke or Ianka Ochanke. We heard, they said in different ways. We say that Chankuluta, the Red Road, the race of creation. There was a time when all creation was complete, and they said there was a race to decide who was going to become above all creation intellectually. So before they began the race, there was a couple things that happened, and often we don't hear these stories, like I said. One is the buffalo offered to help mankind, the Pateo Yate. 2 was the magpie said it would represent mankind. Before that happened, the eagle fought the wolf and killed the wolf. And the eagle said, whoever wins this race, I'm going to give that wolf's medicines and the songs to them. And I'm going to help them. So as they went around the Black Hills, they ran around from Bear Butte 4 times, I heard. And as they ran around, it created that red ring around the Black Hills from the earth, turning red from the hooves, bleeding. So if you go around the Black Hills, that Highway 90 is on part of that. It's kind of dipped as you drive around. You'll see it kind of dip like that. It's kind of like a shkokpa shape. And so they ran around. They say as they ran and ran around, it pushed the hills up all around and formed the Black Hills. Towards the end, they say the magpie rode on the back of the buffalo, because as I mentioned, they had an agreement. And as they got near the finish line, the magpie flew across first. And mankind was able to live and become supposedly intellectually superior in creation. The wolf, like I said, was killed by the eagle, and the eagle promised whoever won, he was going to give him his medicine and the songs of the wolf. So the eagle gave that to mankind. The eagle also taught mankind how to hunt, how to fight, to protect themselves in battle. And this is why we wear eagle feathers in honor of the eagle and what they did to us long ago. These kind of stories, my grandpa used to call them believe it or not, because they say in the beginning we could talk with other relatives in creation. And so if you ever go to Bear Butte, you go through Sturgis, there's kind of a dip that goes through the hills. And then it goes to the Highway 90 that goes around. And so that's where it started, at Bear Butte. And that's kind of one reason why Bear Butte is kind of sacred to us and to other nations. A lot of times we look at it, oh, that's a place of Homblecha, the Region Quest. But that's only one reason why, because a famous medicine man used to go there, and other medicine men used to go there to Bear Butte, to Homblecha. I talked about, one I didn't talk about was a prophet, Wakanwi Chasha. His name was Iahokshila, Stone Boy. We hear the story about Stone Boy who made a sweat and brought his uncles back to life. But we don't know too is as a result of that, all the bad in creation came to destroy Stone Boy for what he did to that witch, the Khmuhawi. So you say witch, that old lady. They said this story is just a little story about Stone Boy that we don't hear. A little bird came one morning after he brought his uncles back, and said to Stone Boy, because of what you did to that old witch, all the bad on earth is going to come, and we're going to destroy you. When the skies turn red, Makriya Shasha, they said, when the clouds in the sky turn red, we're going to come destroy you. And that bird left. Then another bird come, and they told Hokshila, the good on earth is going to come, and we're going to help you fight the bad on earth. So when that day comes, we will be by your side. So they said some time passed, and one morning he woke up and the sky was red. The clouds were all red. And he knew that they were going to come, the bad on earth. So the good came, and they backed up Hokshila, and they fought for 4 days. They say 4 days there was blood spilled on earth. They said that where the earth turned red from the blood, said after 4 days, a white buffalo calf come and told them, you can't destroy Hokshila. So you need to make peace with them. So they made peace. They made peace, and the earth tried to cleanse herself of the blood that was spilled on her. But she couldn't totally cleanse herself. Where the earth and that blood was spilled is a place called Pipestone, Minnesota, or Chanumpa, or Chansha, or Iasha, excuse me. That red stone is the blood of creation, our pipe. And in the pipe, it's because good and bad was spilled. Within the pipe, that sacred red stone is good and bad. But how you use that pipe, they say, is up to you. You wonder why somebody can misuse something sacred. That's why, because they choose the bad in it and not the good. So that's how Pipestone came. Like I said, Hokshila was a Wakawichasha. When his time was up, he went up onto a hill. His body was laid to rest, and his body floated up above and then shattered. Ia is a stone. So Stone Boy, his body shattered above the Black Hills. And that's how those 7 sacred mountains or altars in the Black Hills was created, from his body. So I had to tell that story a little bit so you know about that. Like I said, in treaty, this one reason, we never sold the Black Hills. There's 4 levels of the Black Hills. Oh, we used to hear Paha Sapa, and that was said, oh, that's the Black Hills. The Black Hills is the foothills around the Black Hills is Paha Sapa. Chankuluta is the red road between the foothills and Sapa, the Black Hills. There's that little dip I said. The red road goes around. That's the 2nd level. Then Sapa, the actual Black Hills, the mountains. In the center of the Black Hills is what we call Preshla. The center of that is also called Wamaka Chante Oganaka. So we say the heart of the earth, what it translates to. So those are the 4 levels: Pahasapa, Chankuluta, Chesapa, and Wamaka Chante Oganaka, the heart of the earth. So the heart of the earth is the Black Hills, the heart of the Nakota, Dakota, and Lakota people. There are 7, when Ea Hokshila fell, there are 7 onto earth, created those 7 sacred altars. There are 7 also, we say altars, or we say 7 sacred houses. Mato Tipila, Waka Oti, Wigmuke Oti, Tayamani Otipi, Truka Tipi, Wamaka Ochante Tipi. So that's another way to say them. Just like there's different ways to say that the red road, or we say Ki Ianka Ochanku. They say the racetrack. Chanku Luta, the red road. Wamakashka Oki Ianka. Also, Wamakashka is kind of creation, or all that has movement on earth. It's an inclusive word. We say. The first one I'm gonna talk about is Matopaha, we call it. You kind of see here just kind of a crude drawing of the Black Hills. I kind of numbered them one through I believe 8. So I'm gonna go through and I'll talk about a little bit about each. We often think about there's only one way, but like I said, there's more than one way, there's more than one story, there's more than one meaning in life. The difference between common man knowledge and sacred knowledge is you learn that other aspect and other names for these sacred places. I had an older brother, his name was Ed Young Man Afraid of His Horses. He used to take people around to these places. He was a teacher at Little Wound School in Kyle. He would take the students there. He would take visitors to these places and he would tell stories about it. Then, it was the time of my life, all I cared about was powwowing. I had finished my commitments at Sundance. And I kind of focused on that. But then he passed away. And when he passed away, I kind of took it upon myself to remember those things that he told me and shared with me, to remember and to learn more about these places, these altars, and why they're sacred to the Ocheti Shakawe Oyate. The first one I'm going to talk about is a place called Matopaha. We call it Bear Butte. Bear Butte has several different names, but it's more well known as a place to Humpalechia, to Vision Quest. It's also called Wakapaha, Sacred Mountain. There's another name too. There's a bunch in Che Wajipaha, One Horn Butte. And they all have names and the stories associated with them. I could name all of them, but just those 3. There's at least 7, 8 names for that. They say a long time ago, two bears. Bears always have twins. They were there, and that brother, they got separated from the mother, and that brother bear said to the other bear, you brother, you stay here and wait. I'm gonna go look for our mother, and I'll come back. And they say he sat there and waited, and then took a nap and laid down. So if you look there, it's kind of like a bear laying on the ground with his butt in the air. And his brother never came back with the mother, and that brother bear became petrified and became that Butte. That's one story. There's a story of Wakampaha. It's a story about a man who went up on top to Umbletia, and he didn't come down. So those that were camped there waiting for him, this was a holy man, Wakamwichasha. So they went up to look for him, and here he was hit by lightning. And he was hit by lightning, and he was all burnt up when they found him. So after that, they called it Sacred Butte. The other name I said is Hey Wanji Praha, one horn Butte. There was a man named One Horn, and that family's still alive here. There was a fight there with the crow, and his son was killed in that fight. So that man, they were camped there by Bear Butte. So that man went back into his lodge, and he was very distraught over what happened to his son. And he came out, and he just had his chegnaka on and moccasins, and he had a knife on the side. And he got on his horse and he rode off. And people were concerned about him because he was mourning his son who had been killed in that battle. So when he didn't come back, they went looking for him, searching for him. And here they found him dead next to a buffalo bull. The buffalo bull had gored him with his horns and killed him. And with that man, he also, with that knife he had with him, he stabbed that buffalo bull to death. So when they found them, they were laying dead side by side. So after that, it was called Hewanji Praha. This is just a little bit about Bear Butte. We say, if you want to have kids and you can't have kids, you go there and you pray at Bear Butte and you put out offerings. Waonye. Cheka na waonye. Pray and put out offerings for if you want children. It's the home of the twins. Chekpapi. Chekpa is your belly button. Chekpapi means more than one belly button. And that's our word for twin. Chekpapi. So if you have twins and you go out there and you put out offerings for them and you pray for their lives of our twins. So Bear Butte has, there's a story too, about twin bears. And a woman who wanted to have children. Anyway, she went there and then come back and she ended up having twins. And like I said, there's other stories, but become famous for that man who went up in Humbletia on there. One was I'll think of his name. The second place I'm going to mention is Wakia Wohokpi. Wakia is the thunder Wakia means wa is something. Kia is to fly. Or you can say wakankia, something sacred flies. That's our word for thunder. It's an old word going back to the dinosaur days. Wookpi means nest. Often we call this place too Black Elk Peak because another famous man went there to Humbletia, Black Elk. But it's Wakia Wohokpi. Wohokpi is a nest where the thunderbirds nest. That place is also called kind of looks like fingers. It's also called the Needles in the Black Hills. Black Elk Peak is part of the Needles. The Needles is another name is Wichinchila Shakanwi. I mentioned about the 7 sisters who were killed and their spirits were put up as stars in the star world. Where their bodies were buried is in the Needles. We go there in springtime. Wakagli means thunder, when the thunder comes. Because I said, Wakia is something sacred. So we say Wakangli is the thunder. And this, the thunder comes to in springtime, returns to the Black Hills. And we have our spring showers and all thunderstorms originate in the Black Hills and goes along the prairie. We also call this Wakia Taogli Iodonke, where the thunder return to roost. They said thunder likes to rest upon sharp objects and nest. I hear people call it Hihaka, Ghost Butte. That's wrong. It's a wrong name. That book, Lakota Star Knowledge, that's one of the errors in it, is it calls Blackout Peak Ghost Butte. It's wrong. If you look at it, there's it's misprinted in two, it's mentioned in one place correctly, but in another place, it's mentioned incorrectly and people repeat it. So I'll tell you the story about that and where Ghost Butte is, but it's not at Black Elk Peak. And I hear people, you read it in a book, but it doesn't mean it's true. You have to take into account our oral history. It comes before books. Our oral history, our oral stories comes before books. So the Black Elk Peak, that was the second sacred altar in the Black Hills. The third one is a place we call Treshla. We also, as I mentioned, it's Wamaka Chante Oganaka, the heart of the Black Hills, the heart of the earth is Peshla. If you go there, we go there in mid-May and we pray. And the reason we do that is we pray for the new life that's going to come. And we offer different offerings. We lay down tobacco with our prayers for mankind. We lay down, say, a buffalo heart or a buffalo tongue for those meat eaters that walk the earth. We lay down corn seed for those that fly. Then we put down water. We offer water, mini. We offer water for all levels of life. And we do this because at this time in mid-May, all of creation is beginning to give birth. The process of giving birth starts there. The eagle, the buffalo. So, and a long time ago, we used to plan the birth of our children in springtime too, to coincide with the birth of when buffalo gave birth to the calves. So that's one reason. Peshla too is, I told about that star knowledge. Peshla is where those two girls sat there wishing to marry those stars. That's where that occurred. The fourth place I'm going to talk about is called Maka Oinia, but it has other names too. We call it Wasunie. Peta Oti Kinipape is another name. Like I said, there's more than one name, but a lot of times you only know one name, Wind Cave. One time I mentioned one of the other names and somebody said, no, you're wrong there. It's Wasunie. But then I had to step back and I said, well, you don't know that story. You don't know that story about why it's called Pte Oti Kinipape. Just like people don't know that why it's called, Wind Cave is also called Maka Oinia. Maka Oinia is where the earth breathes life. And we said long time ago, Tokahe came out of Wind Cave, the first man on earth, and others came with them. And this was after the great continental shift, and the earth shook herself. That time we went under earth. We were Wichasha Akantusni, was it? Man under the earth. When Tokahe came out, we became Wichasha Akant, man upon earth. And Wasunie means the hole that breathes, because it's a cave. It's a hole into the earth. And we say, then we were, they say, servants to the Pteoyate. And that's one reason why it's called Pte Oti Kinipape, because the Pteoyate, they lived under there. When Tokahe came out onto the earth, before he left, he was told, don't go. One of the buffalo, they told him, don't. The Pteoyate said, don't go up there. But Tokahe didn't listen and decided he's going to go up. When that happened, an elder buffalo said, I'm going to go first, and I'm going to watch over mankind while he's on earth. So the elder buffalo spirit went out. They said when we were under the earth, we were ogligle in form. It's kind of hard to to translate that word, but we were kind of small. There's different stories about Wind Cave. They said when we come out, you know, Ikutomi tricked us with meat and offered to get more meat for us if we went out, because we had never tasted meat. So they went out, and then Ikutomi took off and disappeared. Tokahei couldn't find the entrance back in the Wind Cave, and Tokahei, they said they then prayed to the Creator, crying for help. The Creator said, answered him and said, you weren't supposed to come out on the earth. So your punishment for doing so is you're going to remain here. There's different versions of this story. There's a long version. I'm trying to condense things so I could cover all 7. They say too that as they got further away from Wind Cave, they grew in size. If you could imagine a small people, like a midget in size, but as they traveled away from Wind Cave, they grew bigger in size. There's a story too where Ikutomi prepared a feast, and for them, and when they ate at that feast, they got so big that they couldn't fit back into Wind Cave. You know, there's different kind of versions of that story. These different versions, you know, they're all held within the Tioshpa, the Tuahe family, the Ocheti, you know, the camp circles. We all have a little bit different story and version. They're not wrong, but so that's a little bit about the 4th place, Wind Cave, and why it's important. Like I said, from Wind Cave, we spread out. The Dakota bands were formed. The Nakota bands were formed. And the Lakota stayed around the Black Hills. But we're all related. Like I said, this reservation, this colonialism is a way to divide us, to weaken us, to divide and conquer us. So we don't look at the big picture that we're all related. We think, oh, I'm here. I'm not related to them. By treaty, the Black Hills belongs to the Nakota, Dakota, and the Lakota people to this day. The 5th place I'm going to talk about is Butte Tatiopa. It too has several names. Wigamuke. Wigamuke is a rainbow, or trap the sun is our word for rainbow. Hunkpa Tiopa, where our ancestors' doorway into the Black Hills. Makacha Opaya is another name for it. Butte Tatiopa, we call Buffalo Gap, or the Buffalo Door. And I mentioned that it's where Wind Cave is, it's directly east of there. There's a story about a long time ago. We were told that when you have a hard time and you need help, to go to Wind Cave and pray. So one time a medicine man went there and he prayed. Our people were having a hard time. He prayed and he put out offerings. Then he was returning. And as he went east, he came upon this hill. And he stood on the hill, and from that hill he looked down, and there was buffalo grazing. And he watched them. And this is a story about why Buffalo Gap is important to us. That man, that medicine man, as he stood there watching, after a while, one of the buffalo come out and came and talked to him. Said, "Can I help you?" That medicine man said, "No, I'm just watching you. You're watching your people graze. And you have plenty of grass to eat. You look at peace. But I'm just traveling through. My people are having a hard time. So I went to pray and put out offerings for them for help. And I'm on my way back to my people." So that buffalo bull said, "Return here tomorrow with your people. Among your people, select somebody who is good, a good man with a good reputation. And when you come here tomorrow, you say this prayer before you take our life." He said, "Everything on our body you can use and it will help your people." And that buffalo explained to him, how to use the sinew off their back, how to butcher and use their hide for covering for their lodges, to make clothes and robes, etc. Every part you could use. So that medicine man left, and he went home and he told his people what happened. And they talked about it. And among themselves, they selected a man of good repute, a man of good reputation, to take that buffalo's life. The next day they come back and they stood on that mound and they waited. And finally, one came up from the herd and came up to that mound and said a prayer, and then took that buffalo's life. That day, they feasted that day, and they were very thankful for what that buffalo did to offer his life. So they decided, well, let's go back and we'll thank them. We'll thank that leader, that buffalo bull that come and talked to that medicine man that day. So they returned the following day. They stood on that hill waiting. And finally, one of them come out from the herd and he went up to where they were standing on that hill. "Can I help you?" "Yeah, we want to thank your leader for what you guys did for us, for one of you offering his life. Can we talk to him?" And that buffalo said, "You can't talk to him because you took his life yesterday." So because of that, the buffalo saved us by offering his life. So this is one reason why our teepee doors used to face to the east, towards the Buffalo Gap. And this is why we call ourselves the Pateoyate, the Buffalo Nation as well. The buffalo is a teacher to us. It teaches us how to be as leaders. It teaches girls or women to be good homemakers, to be industrious, to work. Our ancestors weren't lazy. You know, you think about it, you know, you had to go out and hunt, you had to collect food, you always had to do things for the future, you know. So survival, our ancestors were tough people, really tough. You know, the old guy said, you know, you think you're tough, or you think about how our ancestors were. And that's true. We lived through massacres. We lived through diseases, smallpox, and stuff that the white man brought us. We didn't have these diseases, but we lived through them. The buffalo, you know, teaches us to, in winter, to stand and face the winds, the cold, harsh winds. About 7 years ago, there was a blizzard here where I live. I mean, it was so deep that my truck out front was buried. I couldn't even see down the road, and my neighbors' cars were buried, and I was snowed in. Took me 4 days to dig just a path for me to get to my truck and then to the road, and then finally a snowplow come. During that time, here in South Dakota, thousands of cows died. Only one buffalo. And that's a resiliency of the buffalo. And we're resilient like the buffalo. So this is why Buffalo Gap is important to us. That was the number 5 altar in the Black Hills. The number 6 I'm going to talk about is Iakaha. If you drive by that, they call it Iakara. The white man just kind of messed up the spelling of our word. Kaha means to make. Ia, stone. To make stone. It's also called Ptehe Sapa Paha, Blackhorn Butte. Another name for this is Hihakaha Paha. They call Ghost Butte. Mistakenly, like I said, they call Black Elk Peak, also Ghost Butte, but that's wrong. There's a story about, they used to see a giant buffalo bull around that butte. And that butte is located located right there, number 6 on the west side of the Black Hills. They used to see a giant buffalo bull, and they would follow it, and it would head off towards that butte, and they would follow it and try to track it. When they got up there towards that butte, it would disappear, and they could never find it. So that's how it got its name, Ghost Butte. And I never heard people kind of say a story about Black Elk Peak and calling it Ghost Butte, but I never heard it. So that's how it got its name. In Iakara means, like I said, make stone. Before Sundance, I mentioned these places. We would go to all of them. That's called walking the red road. To go to all these places I've mentioned so far and pray and put out offerings. They went around, they went to Iakara. That's a place where they would collect rocks, stones for sweat lodge. In the Sundance, part of it is to sweat, to cleanse ourselves. Iakara, if you go there, Iakara, if you go there, there's on top are those old pictographs carved in the stone that our ancestors left. And down below is natural springs, kind of on the south and west side of that butte, if you look down from the top. And there's ancient drawings because our ancestors used to go there and they would collect the stones they used for sweat lodge. They would also, this is the last chance to humbletia. So they would humbletia up there too. But we only think of one place when we think of humbletia. We only think of their Butte. You know, you could humbletia anywhere, but that was like the last chance to humbletia before Sundance. The name Buffalo Blackhorn Butte is because the Black Hills, as I mentioned in the last session, at summer solstice becomes a buffalo laying on the earth. So if we take it like this and turn it, when the stars Pleiades aligns with all these, the 7 stars aligns with all these 7 altars, the 7 sacred mountains. This is my chante ojuja, my pipe bag. You can see a buffalo laying on the earth. You see the horns, the nose, the tail. At summer solstice, that's what the Black Hills becomes. When it becomes that, Iakara becomes Blackhorn Butte, Buffalo Blackhorn Butte. The 7th place I'm going to talk about is what we all know as Matrotipila. Matrotipila Bear Lodge. It's also called Petehe San Praha. San is like a whitish color, a light color like a gray. We can also say Petehe Chi Praha. Chi is gray. Another name for it is Wahokpi Oyate Praha. The wings nest, the winged nations nest Butte. And the story of Matrotipila or Bear's Lodge, they call Devil's Tower. Why it's important is this is where the sacred pipe come. This is where the sacred pipe was brought by the white buffalo calf woman to us. This is where the Sundance come. So we would return every year to where the first Sundance was, and we would have a Sundance. And that's walking the red road all around the Black Hills, starting at Bear Butte all the way, those places I mentioned so far. The 7th altar is Devil's Tower or Bear's Lodge. There was one Sundance at one time, and whatever we had good we shared. The pipe was shared. The Sundance ways was shared. You know, our ancestors just didn't, they weren't stingy. You know, we shared what good we had to help one another. So, and that's walking the red road. At summer solstice, June 21st, around that time. After that time is Sundance time. When the Black Hills becomes a buffalo laying on the earth. Tatanka maka kapa, that's how you say it, buffalo laying on the Mother Earth. When the Black Hills becomes that. Then Iakara becomes Buffalo, Blackhorn, Butte. Devil's Tower is just north of there, becomes Patehe, Sapa, Buffalo, Greyhorn, Butte. Bear Butte becomes Pate, Patuye, Paha, the buffalo's nose. So when they align with the stars, then it's time for Sundance. You see, these are the 7 sacred places in the Black Hills. There's other places too, but those are the 7 main that and this is why we considered the Black Hills sacred. We never sold the Black Hills. Like I said, us as Dakota, and Lakota, we still have the Black Hills. My grandpa, who's Nakota, he signed on one of those treaties at Fort Laramie, representing the Nakota people. His name was T.B. Hanska, Long Lodge, Chief Long Lodge. There's my grandpa. The other place I'm going to talk about is a place called Hot Springs. We always say Minikata, but Minikata just means hot water. Mini Wiwila Kata. Wiwila is a spring water. So the full name is Minikata Wiwila. When the Black Hills becomes a buffalo laying on the earth, if you look at this buffalo, that horn is Greyhorn Butte. That horn is Blackhorn Butte. The nose is Bear Butte. The heart is Peshla, the heart of where the buffalo is. Here, Wind Cave becomes the birthplace, the womb, the birthplace of the buffalo, the birthplace of the Nakota, Dakota, and Lakota people. Minikata, or Hot Springs, is located right there, close to it. We say that's the earth is milk, nourishment, the buffalo milk. Buffalo Gap is part of where the buffalo calf come out at birth. So just to tie in these places and kind of wrap them all up. I didn't say everything, but there's a reason there. Hot springs in the Black Hills, there's all kinds of springs. Around the springs is Wiwila Wichasha. These are little people, we call. The little people, they guard the springs. Long time ago, we never drank from a spring. The spring water is sacred. That's why we use spring water in our ceremonies. Every ceremony that involves water, we use spring water only. When we were in Wind Cave, that's what we lived off. The spring water is like I said, it's like when the buffalo's milk, nourishment. The spring water is the same to us. In the grass dance ceremony, and when we use spring water in ceremony, we call it Waka Takoja, sacred grandchild. Because when we drink it, it renews us and we become like a grandchild again. We become pure. We go back to when we were young and our life was new. So the hot springs is a sacred place to us. We protected it when the first white man came there to the Black Hills. They kept wanting to know, and they heard about hot springs. Where is this place? We heard about it. Can you take us there? And they refused to take them there. There was one guy. It's always one guy. Huh? He said, I'll take you there if you give me a horse. So the white man said, okay. Well, they gave him a horse. So he took him where hot springs was. And afterwards, that man went home. He tied up his horse outside his lodge, a brand new horse.
Oh, it looks like we lost the live feed from Dekshi Jim from his presentation. Must have had some type of technical difficulty. But what we'll do is we will make sure and get him back next week. Looks like he is returned. Dekshi Jim Yagli. All right. Looks like we just had a technical error with some Wi-Fi or something, but you're back.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was just wrapping up my presentation. Those are, like I said, this is the reason why we never sold the Black Hills. And these places, like I said, we went around to all these places, ending at Devil's Tower for Sundance. And the original meaning of walking the red road meant going to all these places and praying and putting out offerings. In the 1970s, when we start practicing our ways again openly, those that helped us, because we were battling with drug and alcohol addictions, those that helped us were spiritual leaders that we had. They became our drug and alcohol counselors. And they used our ceremonies to help. You know, we used the sweat lodge to help people heal ourselves. And so they talked about using our ceremonies to help us heal, or walking the red road. And that's where that term come from. And today we consider that. Chiksabia means to live a natural life, the way the Creator. You should all get a chance. You come here to the Black Hills, and I encourage everybody to learn as much as you can. I guess that there was a time in my life where I didn't care. You know, I was busy doing other things. But then, like I said, the passing of my brother kind of, in his memory, I took it upon myself to learn more. And once I learned more, then I had a deeper understanding of why we did things, why ceremonies are. These, the Black Hills, those 7 altars are sacred. We say our face is sacred. Ochloha Shakawi. Our face is sacred, the 7 openings in our face. So your face is sacred. We have to step back and look at life, and it's never too late to pray. It's never too late to learn. And I thank you for listening to me again. And it's an honor to share with you a little bit. And I try to condense it into close to 1 hour as I could.
Wopida Chiche, Dexy Jim, thank you for that presentation. Those of you that are listening to this, we're going to have Dexy Jim on for the next 3 weeks, I believe. Wednesdays at 9 o'clock our time. We'll live stream it. And we'll also upload a copy of the presentation to our YouTube channel. So a lot to learn. It's really a fascinating presentation. So again, we thank you for sharing with us. So do you have any other parting comments?
Next week, I'm going to share about our ceremonies and how they're tools to help maintain balance and to help us in life, and the 7 ceremonies. And I'll talk about, try to talk about it in a way so we understand as common people. Thank you again.
Piramia. Pete washte you ha po mitakipi. Dokstake.
Dokstake.
Hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ya.